Hello and welcome back to A Better World. This is your host, Mitchell J. Rabin, and we're very glad that you're joining us again today. Today we are on location at the Sivananda Ashram Yoga Ranch up in Woodburn, New York. We are nestled very happily in the Catskill Mountains. It's very beautiful up here. This is one of those examples of creating a better world. It is possible. This place is a gathering place for people from all over the world. People come to study yoga, learn asanas, and for meditation. It's all based on the Vedanta philosophy from Shivananda, as he expressed it. He set this up many years ago, and through the work of Swami Vishnu, one of his closest disciples, sent him to America and started to establish centers all over America and now all over the world. We're here to learn about the center and their work, and we'll be speaking with a number of their guests, staff, and Srinivasan, who is the director of this yoga ranch. So we welcome you to stay tuned and think that you'll enjoy it very much. You'll really get a sense of what this place is. It will take 2 shows to begin to let you know what it's like here, but certainly you'll get a real sense of life here at this very beautiful place. And now we're seated with Srinivasan, who is the director of the Shivananda Yoga Ranch up here in Woodburn, New York, a very beautiful place. And Sri has been involved with this organization for some 20 years. He's also involved in the international board, which makes decisions about the further promulgation of yoga and Shivananda yoga and the Vedanta philosophy worldwide. So we're very pleased to have him on the show today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So if you would just give us, please, first an idea, Sri, of how it is that you got involved in yoga in the very first place.
Yoga has been in my life. It has been a very integral part of my life as much as I can remember. And it really, coming to learn of yoga really came, it's like coming home to me. And in high school, I had my first yoga asana class with a couple of the students of Swami Vishnu Devananda. And the first class that I had, it just really opened up a whole new world, inner world of what it could mean to really be at peace and to really to go beyond the limits of a small rural town and that, the material life that was involved in that. Sure. And then as
you started early.
Not early enough.
Perhaps.
But they say that actually spiritual practice is something which continues with you from lifetime to lifetime, and all of us have been on this path for a long time.
Yes, we've been yogis many a time. Huh? Yes.
And I'm sure also your viewers as well, if there's awakening whatever spiritual practice that they're doing, they realize there's an awakening of past tendencies, the past memories will come up as the practice begins.
Sure, absolutely. And it's kind of a remembering, they say. We're remembering in different times in our lives. Our body has memory.
Exactly.
And it gets awakened.
Yes. The body has memory, and there's also that spirit that goes from life to life also has memory, even if we're not consciously aware of it, as we find ourselves in positions which are, or situations which correspond to work that we've done in past lives, then that knowledge is awakened.
Yes.
And this, with yoga, many people in the West that are starting to practice yoga now are because there are many people who are coming into this country to hopefully to make peace and to bring the balance back. That's our time. This time that we're living in really calls for.
Absolutely. Now, Shivananda had been a doctor originally, is that correct?
Yes.
Could you give us a little bit of the history of his own evolution?
Well, Swami Shivananda was born in a very Orthodox Brahmin family, and he actually, in his family, they talk about the saints that are born in your family, when you talk about your ancestors.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine American families talking about the saints in their families? That would be wonderful.
So he came out of that tradition of saints, and at the same time he had a British education in India, but was taught in the British schools, and was also very aware of what was going on outside of India, and very fascinated with the advances of modern science, and decided that he wanted to live a life of service. And to do so, he decided to become a medical doctor. So even when he was in the university studying medicine, he was publishing a journal called Ambrosia, which was different techniques for public health or for personal hygiene or personal health, just things that would be practical that people could apply to their lives. And then when he finished with his studies, he went to Malaysia and worked as a medical doctor in a plantation area, where he taught he actually cared for many very, very poor and suffering people.
Mm-hmm.
And this was where he had his career as doing karma yoga.
His yogic training, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, he realized that there was more than just treating the physical body, and that the source of the suffering was much deeper than that. So he began to study the yoga philosophy, and then he renounced his material life and went on pilgrimage and ended up in Rishikesh at the foot of the Himalayas, the banks of the Ganges, in a very ancient center for yogis to go and practice their intense sadhana or spiritual practice. And from here, he gathered people together with his own vision of peace, his own vision of bringing a new renaissance of yoga in India. And people came to be part of that work because his own vision, his own inspiration drew other people of that same tendency towards him, that same thought vibration. And our teacher, Swami Vishnu, was one of those senior disciples, and was actually the first disciple that Swami Shivananda sent to the West with the words, "People are waiting." And
yes.
He really had a vision of how important yoga would become here.
Mm-hmm. Now you mentioned peace as a part of his vision, and I know the mission of peace is very important to the Shivananda organization as a whole. Could you just comment a bit on the role of peacemaking in this organization?
Well, both with Swami Shivananda and Swami Vishnuvananda, there was no difference between personal peace and external peace. So we come to the world with our own thought vibration. If someone is an angry person, then they're going to be very angry wherever they go. It doesn't matter how peaceful the environment is, they will carry it. If someone has a very deep, deep peace within themselves, then wherever they go, they can even go in a battlefield, or people like Mother Teresa, or people like who serve in so many different places, serving the poor and suffering humanity, have tremendous strength and inner force to be able to do that service. And that comes from it's a spiritual force. So the spiritual force is strengthened by serving the humanity, which is, from a yoga perspective, is you're serving your own self. To love thy neighbor as thyself is really at the basis of all spiritual teachings.
True enough, and that's very much carried forward here. And I have experienced that being in your home here.
It's also your home, Mitchell.
Yes, that is true. It is, yeah, and it feels very much that way. Yeah. What do you think that the audience ought to know about the work that you're doing up here in Vedanta?
Well, the first is that, again, if you want to have inner peace in your life, that you need to be able, and you want to have peace around you, that you need to discipline your life. And that's actually what Swamiji's main message was to teach people how to, as he said, to stand on their own heads and to teach people a spiritual discipline to be able to make peace for themselves and for the world around them.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I really want to commend you, Sri, for maintaining this very lively, loving, compassionate tradition.
I feel very honored to be able to be in this position where I can carry on with the work of these great masters.
God, yes.
Also to say to your viewers, if there's room for if anyone would like to come and help and join in this work, they're very much welcome, and to come either for a yoga vacation, or to come for a spiritual retreat, or even if they have a more inspired to carry on in the work of Swami Vishnu Devananda, Swami Shivananda, then there's also those possibilities also there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I feel that your work is helping to seed many potential yogis. So thank you. Say personally, thank you for the work that you're doing and carrying the torch, because we deeply appreciate it. At this point in time, we need more torchbearers than ever before. So
thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And also I'd like to thank you for the work that you're carrying on with this show, and to try to make a better world, which is what so many people are doing in so many different ways, and to have that unity in diversity, and to see that one goal of a spiritual harmony. If each of us carries out our dreams, I think that there's...
we'll achieve it.
We'll achieve it.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much. Om Namah Shivaya. Everybody does karma yoga around here. Purifies the soul, increases the will, discipline. It's actually a very important part of life here in the ashram. Everybody participates, helps to build a sense of teamwork, camaraderie with others, cooperation, and the will. So each time I've been here, assigned me different jobs, kitchen, the garden, digging ditches, and each time I get different kinds of benefits, as does everyone else when they do this kind of work. It's, in a sense, taking the discipline of yoga and beginning to apply it to the world. Of course, that's where it's most
What about the little ones? The little ones.
And now we're seated with Jagatamba. She is obviously of Indian descent, and yet had no background at all in Hinduism or yoga or anything like that, but came to it on her own through her own good graces, you could say, good fortune. She is also a yoga teacher here who I've had the great pleasure of studying with, and she has this wonderful, gentle way of both pushing and loving us at the same time as we're going into we never thought we could possibly attain. So thanks so much for coming onto the show.
It's been my pleasure, but thank you for asking me.
Absolutely.
So,
tell us a little bit, if you would, first, how is it that you did come to studying Shivananda yoga philosophy? And
sometimes I wonder about that myself, since I, as you had just mentioned, didn't have what they call a complete Indian background. But as a New Yorker, I went to Madison Square Garden, and they had a health expo years ago, very big, well promoted festivity, and it was there that I got my first introduction to yoga per se. I was lucky enough to have met Swami Vishnu Devananda. He gave us a lecture. I was fascinated that during the course of his lecture there was a person in the background standing on their head, and aside from being captivated by what Swami had to say, we were also captivated by what we thought might have been a statue. And then when the subject matter was over, the person came out of the headstand. So that was a nice...
moving statue.
If one wants to say, a nice commercial gimmick to show you
Sure.
the power of the mind
Sure.
to master the body, if one should tried to go in that direction.
Sure. Let's just make note that, so for those who do not know who Swami Vishnu is, he was appointed by Shivananda to come and start yoga centers in the West.
This is true. He was one of the first pioneers. About 1957 he came. His main headquarters...
Early, actually. Quite early for this.
Right. His main headquarters are Shivananda Yoga Camp, that's in Canada, and the branches are throughout the world, from South America to, of course, Europe, Germany, France, England, and here in America, in New York and in California. So I am predominantly based in the New York Center. We are now here at the yoga ranch, and it's like 2 hours away from the hustle and bustle of metropolitan, cosmopolitan life.
Yes.
And
a welcome change. Huh?
Yes, it is.
Sure. How is it that there was obviously something that when you saw the gentleman in the headstand and you met Swami Vishnu, something was reached inside you that created some kind of shift.
My own inner desire to help people had already, been initiated, and when I was introduced to the physical aspects of yoga, I realized that this was a marvelous way of attaining good health and a good way of life for those who wanted to, how shall I say, change or incorporate it into their way of life. It's not a completely change of your philosophy. It's a change of your lifestyle. So that's the difference.
The philosophy itself is actually very common sense.
Yes.
Which is why I think it rings true for so many people.
Yes. Because here in America, everyone is fascinated with the Hatha Yoga aspect, which is the physical aspect. And sometimes I like to draw out to them that this is a part of Raja Yoga, which is considered the king of the yogas.
Would you kind of spell out for us, if you would? That would be wonderful.
Well,
what the different branches or limbs, as it were.
Yeah, limbs is just the word. Raja Yoga consists of 8 limbs. There is Yama and Niyama, which are the do's and the don'ts of good living, sort of like we can associate that with our 10 Commandments. And then we have the asanas, which most people are familiar with, which is for inner physical health, not just outer beauty, which of course we all want. And then there's pranayama, because they really are attached and make you very much aware of the fact that breath is life and life is breath. So the control of the breath leads to what we call mastery of the body and the mind, and that's pranayama. After that, you find that you go into the deeper esoteric aspects. There's pratyahara, which is sense withdrawal, and we can think of that as commonly as trying not to have that second portion of dessert, of a no dessert. And we can also think of it as controlling the tongue and the other senses that lead to evil doing, and helps you to purify your body and mind.
It goes another step too, doesn't it?
After pratyahara, we concentrate on dharana. Concentration is dharana, and one does concentration to succeed in any endeavor. And the endeavor in Raja Yoga is dhyana, which is meditation. So meditation is not an easy attainment, it's everyone's goal, because success in meditation leads to samadhi. This is the 8th step in Raja Yoga, and it's considered bliss. And I meditate, but I don't know if I've reached that blissful state yet.
I know, it appears that you have.
I try, but it's a challenge. It's also a challenge, you know? It's a challenge.
Sure.
And I definitely do incorporate it into my daily life. I work with seniors, as I had mentioned before, at senior centers. When I started my different programs almost 20 years ago, they, you know that expression, they laughed when she sat down to play the piano? Well, they laughed when they said, what, yoga at a senior center?
Yes.
But now I have people who I'm happy to say have graduated from chair work introduction to mat work. You know?
Really?
So this is good.
You mean they at first could not get out of a chair?
Yeah,
as in a wheelchair?
Not a wheelchair as much as trying to have the class in a chair. So rather than have them getting on a mat, many persons,
It's kind of stationary.
right, they
Yeah.
would say, well, if I got down on that mat, Jagatamba, I don't think I could ever get up. So through their dedicated practice in the chair work, they maintained agility, confidence, stamina to allow for them to even try some of the mat work. So that in itself was progress, you know?
That's
And I'm happy about that. I'm very happy about that. And we have some chair people now who do not go to chair work at all. They go
They're on
to
the
their
mat.
mat. They're on the mat.
God.
Being on the mat is physical confidence. You know, no one, not no one, I shouldn't be too generalistic about that, but we're all after good health.
Sure.
And it's not that easy to maintain it. But the physical work, the asanas that we do on the mat really does help one. And the older I get, the more I realize this, you know. Maybe perhaps you might start as a jest, you know, and then later when the inner benefits seep in, you realize that you have the kernel of wisdom almost in the palm, and you want to close it and lock it in. And then on the other side, you want to open and share. So
Absolutely. Beautiful image. Beautiful
So
image.
that is how it is with me.
It's interesting, Jagatamba, that at these senior centers around New York, Queens,
Queens
etc.,
predominantly.
you have a mixture of people who are Christian, who are Jewish, who are probably Muslim, at least quite an array, Protestant.
This is,
And they're now learning Vedanta philosophy
yes,
through the asanas and through you.
this is true.
And it
This is
seems
true.
resonant.
This
it
is
seems
true.
that it is seeping into the culture through the work
After
that you
my-
and others are doing.
After my many trips to India, I realized that more what Swami had done by bringing this knowledge to us, because I got a chance to compare and integrate it, as they say. And whereas before it might have been, you know, shunned, if you're a Christian, a Jewish persuasion, or any of the other dominant religious fields, you're going to shy away from anything that's going to take away from your faith.
Or what you think will.
Well, the good thing about this is it adds to your dedication within your faith. And that's what's beautiful. Swami Shivananda
Important point.
has always advocated unity in
Indeed.
diversity,
Indeed.
you know? So,
It's one of the nice things, actually, about Indian teachings, Buddhist teachings, that they're not about taking one away from one's own religion of birth, actually. If anything, they're sort of designed, they're not seeking seekers and followers in the same kind of way.
No,
It's
no.
more, it enhances and augments a person's connection to one's religion of birth, if that is a place where a person wants to worship and grow.
I have two friends who are nuns who go away purposely for their yogic retreat to recharge in order to face their scholastic challenge when
At
school
Catholic
starts.
school,
Yeah.
right?
So
Yes, indeed.
that makes me
That
happy.
underscores it,
right,
doesn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
So this is nice, you know,
Yes.
because they've chosen this, they've come, and they feel as if they have rejuvenated, they have gotten a chance to go further in depth in their own faith so that they can go and profess it to others, you know.
Definitely.
And that's what it is. Yoga is a spreading of truth, knowledge, and spirituality.
Sure. After all, it does mean union. So we have to unite all peoples, and this is one of the ways.
This is one of the
For
ways.
sure. Well, thank you. So, do you want to say some last words to our audience?
I think
From your beautiful heart, we'd love to hear something.
I think that one should be more aware of the fact that when aspects of boredom seem to set into their life, this is a word that one should eliminate. They should try to analyze this as a moment of contentment. It is a time when everything is peaceful, is still. And there's such a common expression I hear among some peoples when they say, "Oh, I'm bored." And I say, well, analyze this. Right now, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. You have a moment of contentment. Enjoy
moment of peace.
a moment
right.
of peace. Enjoy it. So
Wise words.
may the calm waters of contentment abide within you. Let go of all the turbulent waves of desire, so that in you others may find peace. Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya. God bless. Thank you. Well, you have now been introduced to the Shivananda Yoga Ashram here in Woodburn, New York. You've been given a taste of, maybe you could call it the good life. Life up here is really very peaceful, and it offers, as you now know yourselves, at least have been introduced to, a kind of life that is really very well balanced from the discipline of sitting, meditation, of singing, of practicing yogic asanas every day, to sitting about and talking, discussing important ethical and spiritual issues with each other. It offers a chance for people to rebalance their lives, especially those of us who spend so much time in the hectic urban of our modern lives. We are supping from the wonderful fount of ancient Indian wisdom come to us in the form of Vedanta philosophy. So now you now have a sense of that yourselves in a way that you didn't before the show. I do pray, and I hope it's made some difference in your lives. Thanks so much for joining us. This is Mitchell J. Rabin for A Better World. Please send me some email, drop a line. Always appreciate hearing from you. Look forward to seeing you all next week. Hello and welcome back to A Better World. This is your host Mitchell J. Rabin, and we're very glad that you're joining us again today. Today's location at the Shivananda Yoga Ashram Ranch up in Woodburn, New York. This is a very beautiful place. The atmosphere is rich in a sense of spirit, and there's a great sense of discipline here among all of the people who come and visit. People take mini yoga vacations, come up from New York. They come from all over, actually, all over the world, and spend some time getting in touch with a deeper part of themselves. They come and learn the asanas of yoga, and they learn meditation and various forms of chanting. All of this enriches the spirit. The community is vivacious and vibrant. People enjoy themselves tremendously and learn a lot about their spiritual lives, something that many people haven't spent a lot of time doing in general. They can do it here in a rather short period of time, get in touch with a deeper and even higher part of themselves that can help to enrich their lives from the time they come here and on. So I'm very pleased to be covering this and sharing it all with you, the audience, so you can see for yourself. And now we're very pleased to be seated with Swami Padma, who provides tremendous spiritual guidance here at the Yoga Center up in Woodburn. He's been involved with the Shivananda Yoga Centers for over 25 years and has a tremendous amount of experience in working with his own self through his own meditation and yogic practice, as well as being counsel for many people along the path. So thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome, Mitchell.
It's a pleasure. I've been just enjoying your way here, Swamiji, so much, the way you conduct the satsangs and share with us thoughts and feelings of your own in conjunction with that of Vedanta philosophy. It's very rich for me, and I know for other people who are here. Thank you. Would you just share with us a little bit how it is you first came in touch with yoga?
Oh, sure. My father, my biological father, was having classes in our house in Johannesburg, South Africa, where I grew up in the early 60s.
That's unusual.
Yeah, it was really, it was a very good thing for him, but I hated it because they have their class at 7 o'clock on Saturday morning, and that woke me up. And so I hated it.
After a night of carousing, right?
Later on, when I grew up and underwent a lot of pressure, a lot of stress and anxiety, I approached his teacher and I said, I'd like to start. And he was very overwhelmed with joy, and he said, great, come to my house on Monday evening at 5:45, and that's how. And after that very first class, I knew that this was my path. I'm going to stick to this.
How old were you?
I was 24 years old.
Such resolution of mind.
Yeah. Well,
that's unusual.
Tried everything else, so I thought, by exhaustion, proof by exhaustion.
Right.
So I knew I had to stick to something. So
it's interesting. But
I loved it. I think that's also the main thing. I loved it. I started going for meditation and everything, and I read books. I just got involved.
You devoured it.
I devoured it.
Yeah.
You
became devoted through devouring.
Like Jaws, yes.
Yes, right. And so here you are today, a Swami in the Shivananda tradition.
Right.
Yeah, it's wonderful. What is the process of becoming a Swami? Could you describe that? Many people, see people donning orange robes and they hear the word sannyasa and they don't necessarily know what it means.
Traditionally, you study with a Swami, with a master, and it's supposed to be 12 years in the tradition. And then the teacher might recommend you to do it. It can also come from yourself. In the West, it's been cut short because this is like the instant coffee society. So
no one has 12 years to spend
12
waiting,
years, right? So it might take a few years. You work with your teacher, with your Swami, and again the same thing. They might recommend you to do it, and you might want to do it from things coming up inside. You have a calling, and the calling is strong enough. You want to. You don't have any interest in the world, so and you're able to control your desires. So you approach the teacher and you say, this is what I want to do. And he might say no, and you might say yes. And with me it was okay. It was 10 of us at the time did it all together.
And this was with Swami Vishnu Devananda?
Swami Vishnu Devananda at our headquarters in Canada.
And how long ago was that?
It was exactly 20 years ago.
Isn't that interesting? And so does that require a level of renunciation of the world as such?
Yes. There's a ceremony that you undergo in which you actually dip into the water with your two hands up in the air, two arms up in the air, and you renounce the three worlds, the pleasures of the three worlds, this physical world that we live in, the heavenly worlds and the astral planes also. So all
worlds and you renounce all the pleasures of the world, symbolically.
Mhm.
Way. And there's a sacrificial, there's a fire that you put things in the fire in a normal, traditional way.
Yes. And you burn them.
And they also cut a chunk of your hair that you also renounce your body. You burn your body. And so you basically, symbolically, you've not cut ties with the world, but you no longer have attachment to the world. It's a very beautiful ceremony.
At least symbolically. I mean, everyone as a human being has attachments, but it's a commitment, I sense, Swami, that to have a certain detached relationship, no matter what.
Right.
That you strive for that.
Right.
Yeah. It's a powerful kind of declaration.
It's a commitment for not only life, for this life, but for all lives.
Yeah.
You said I quit. I quit.
You join up. You join up in another way, right? Yeah. Could you share with our audience, Swamiji, a little bit about the nature of Vedanta, since it's Vedanta that underlies the Shivananda Ashrams?
Right. What we teaching and practicing, of course, is what's called Advaita Vedanta, which means non-dualistic theory of oneness. In all religions practice and preach, teach that there's only one God. Vedanta is going a little bit further and saying, well, that's true, but not only that, we are that God. We are that divinity. That divinity is you and everything. And the world is a kind of a dream. That's the easiest way to understand it. The world is a dream, and we're dreaming. We're part of this dream. And when we have enlightenment, we wake up from that dream. In the meantime, we're caught in what's called Maya, which is an illusory world of ups and downs and pain and suffering and pleasures. And we have
attachments.
Attachments. So we're trying to raise the consciousness to go beyond that duality. And if we can transcend that duality, we then are in a higher state of consciousness, of awareness, and experience that oneness.
Right, of unity consciousness, you could say, right.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Very powerful.
A nice analogy is of the river. You know, rivers have names and forms, and they're all running to the ocean. But when they join the ocean, they lose their names and forms, and they become one with the ocean. That's Vedanta.
So in a sense, sure, one loses one's own ego. One's own definition of self.
And individuality, sense of individuality.
Mm-hmm. It's a remarkable state. What is it like?
You're being presumptuous.
We've all walked into it and walked out. But it's a noble striving, Swamiji. It sure is. What then is enlightenment? I know it's that sense of complete entering the ocean, as it were. But I guess perhaps I'm asking, how many people do you know, have you known, that have actually been able to complete that level of attainment?
I've been very fortunate that I have met quite a few. And I felt in my heart that this particular person really knows. My own teacher, my own guru, Swami Vishnu Devananda is one of them. Worked with him 19 years. And a few other disciples of Swami Shivananda, direct disciples, and a couple of others. So I've been very blessed.
Truly, truly. It's a whole vibrational field, is it not? It's an entire...
It is, yeah.
Wow.
And to be in their presence is the highest experience in life, is to be with them. to just sit with them.
Yes. And you are, in a sense, imbuing that field, and it's no doubt touching that part of your own nature, that highest part of yourself, which, well, I want to say in closing that your presence here is making a difference in a lot of people's lives, and I feel that you're really touching many. So,
Hope so.
yes, indeed. I mean, let's think of it. People come up from New York, living a very often hectic urban life, and they get away to the Catskills, and they come up to your yoga ranch for sometimes a day or 2 days or 3 or 4 days, and there's some radical shifting that needs to take place, and I feel that
Definitely does take place.
yeah,
There's
you're witness to
amazing.
that, huh?
You come for one weekend and go back home, changed beings.
In your hands and with Srinivasan, I feel that they're in very good hands, and you're really doing a lot
people
of
contribute here.
good work. Yes, indeed.
Lakshmi,
Lakshmi
all
and
the staff.
the staff
Been
is
here a long time. Everybody contributes.
it's a great commitment.
Right.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
We are now seated with one of the yoga instructors here and one of the staff members, Lalita, originally from Holland, who's been involved with Shivananda actually just about a year. And it's been quite life-transforming for her, so she's been kind enough to come on and speak to us a little bit about that. Welcome, Lalita.
Well, thank you.
Yes, good to have you. Tell us first about what your impressions of yoga were. They seemed like they were kind of different than they are now. And how is it that you got involved yourself?
Well, I first became involved because things weren't quite going the way I wanted to in my life. So I decided to take up yoga. But I also had this view of yoga that it was for elderly people and for pregnant women, things like that. So I never really came to take the plunge. But then
It was
I decided
more for, let's say, exercise rather than for spiritual growth.
Exactly, yeah. So then I decided to take a class, and I liked it so much, and it changed a lot of things in my life.
What is it that
just
you saw show up different?
I saw a lot of things that happened in a yoga class, that related to everyday life, thought patterns that you have. And as I changed the thoughts and the attitudes towards things, my life around myself seemed to change too, quite quickly.
Well, and the yoga was sort of the pivot for that kind of
Yeah,
change?
I think so. I think I was ready for it. So, and then I got involved with a Shivananda organization, and I decided to become a resident and to join staff. So for a while.
Well, you went to India.
I did a teacher's training course in India, and then I stayed on as staff in Delhi for a little while, and then I came here, and I've been here for about 4 or 5 months.
God, isn't that something? What's your experience of it here?
It's wonderful. I like it very much.
Uh-huh.
It's beautiful to be outside, be in nature. It's a wonderful experience. It's very it's been for me to work with different people. Sometimes people that you normally wouldn't work with or you wouldn't choose to work with. But it's it just whatever you need to learn, whatever lesson you need to learn, you will come up against.
That's part of the path.
Yeah.
Is the point, right?
Yeah.
It's part of the
I
path.
think so.
Yeah. So what's next after this?
I'll be going back to London in a few weeks, and we'll see where my life takes me.
Yes, indeed. And
Yeah.
yet your relationship with yoga, will that be a constant for you?
I think so. Yes, I'd like it to be. I think it has changed my life, and I think it's a wonderful, wonderful way to live, the way people live here, and I'd like it to be part of my life.
And what is it that you see when people come from the moment they arrive to the moment that they leave? How would you characterize the changes that you've witnessed?
Sometimes when people first come here, there's some resistance against maybe the discipline, or that they have to get up at this time, that they, are expected to do a little bit of karma yoga or to help out a little bit here. Just the way things are set up. And, maybe in a yoga class also there's, resistance against things, and people loosen up as
They
they
loosen up, they
as they get on.
soften, they become more flexible.
Yeah.
Just as
Yeah.
yoga
And
asanas are designed to create.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
People become more flexible in class, they're, more comfortable with things that happen in an asana class, but also in the whole, the whole setup of the ashram.
Yeah.
You see people becoming more flexible.
Yeah. It's very good. Flexibility is the key to health,
Yeah.
I believe. Well, thank you very much for joining us and
You're welcome.
sharing your experience with us. Now we're seated with Surya San Miguel, originally from Spain, who lives in Spain and has often lived in Canada, has been part of the Sivananda Ashram for quite some time. She'll be sharing with us some of her experiences. Thanks for coming on to the show.
You're welcome.
Now, you originally, in terms of your spiritual life, Surya, have been involved in Buddhism. Is that correct?
Yes, in Zen Buddhism.
Yeah. And now actually Tibetan.
Yes,
extent
it's
as well.
true. Also the
Yeah.
Vajrayana tradition.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, what is the relationship of your being involved with Shivananda
Yes.
Ashram with that?
Well, it started about 10 years ago when I first went to the ashram in Canada, and I was looking for learning how to do hatha yoga, taking care of my body, and also I was concerned about the diet. I wanted to stick to a vegetarian diet, and so I went there to spend a summer, and then I liked it so much that I kept
You haven't
going.
been the same since.
That's right. Yes, I keep coming every year.
Uh-huh.
Right. Yeah.
And so, what you got here was more having to take care of the physical body as well as the Vedanta philosophy, I'm sure.
Yes. Well, and of course, then I discovered that Vedanta philosophy is not that different from Buddhist philosophy. So there was no conflict there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, sort of like there are many paths, but one goal.
That's right. Yes. Actually, that's what Master Shivananda used to say. Paths of many are many, but the truth is one, and this is the truth.
Yes, that's the truth. That's right, absolutely. What do you feel has been the main experience or gift that you've received from being connected to the Shivananda teachings?
Yes. Well, it has helped me to relax a lot in my practice and also in everyday life.
That's one of the 5 points of yoga, correct?
That's right. Yes, and it's not that easy. I mean, so yeah, that has helped me a lot, and also the asanas. I mean, the hatha yoga, the physical part. I became a teacher, and I've been teaching, so I've been passing on yoga to other people. So that has been very important for me. Yes.
Sure, absolutely. That's the service part.
That's right. Yes.
Karma
Returning.
yoga,
Yeah.
which is
giving back.
essential,
Yeah, what you
essential
get.
piece of it all.
Right.
When you recognize that you're one with everything, you want
want
to keep
to
giving
share.
to
Right,
right.
yeah.
Others are I and thou are one and the same, right?
That's right.
Sure.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for
You're
joining us
welcome.
and sharing
It's
with
a
us and
pleasure.
being here also. Just lovely to chat with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. Thanks.
All creation is an organic whole. No man is independent of that whole. Man makes himself miserable by separating himself.
We're seated now with Angela Berry, who is here visiting with her children. And this is Family Week, actually, so there have been many children here from all over the place. And Angela's got a very interesting background. She's a nutritionist, has been working for UNICEF for quite some time, and has been involved in emergency relief services really all over the world. And this is one of the places where I guess she gets relief. Right?
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank
Tell us a little bit, how did you hear originally about Shivananda Ashram?
Sure. Actually, I was 22 in
Oh.
California. So I won't say how many years ago that was. Many years ago. And I did the teacher's training. because in fact I read about a yoga vacation and I thought, that's just what I needed.
What a good idea,
What
yoga
I didn't
vacation.
realize was that it was very intense and marvelous.
The teacher's
absolutely
training
wonderful.
was
The
very
teacher's
intense.
training. You know, I mean, it's about 3 or 4 days you think, oh my goodness, what did I get myself into? And you get up at 5:30 and you have, you know, rigorous yoga asanas and exercise. And by about into the first week, for myself, it was a realization that this was a true vacation, because it was really putting me back in a wonderful place, in a very, very revived, very, very re-energized, and putting my really sense of self back on track in some wonderful way.
Yes.
So
Vacation actually
was-
means to vacate.
Exactly.
So it means to,
Yeah.
you know, free
Yeah.
oneself up of what
Definitely.
was
Yeah.
center stage. So,
Yeah, it
and
was.
there you were all of a sudden.
No, it was just magnificent. And I had a skill then as well
To
which
teach
I
yoga?
could use after, which in fact I never really used except with, you know, small circles of friends, but I practiced on my own throughout the years, and shortly after that I started working, actually not with UNICEF but with the UN High Commission for Refugees overseas, and I fell kind of accidentally into this work, which was really in very extreme refugee camp situations, and this training helped me enormously.
Oh, did it?
Enormously, definitely, and
I imagine you're referring, Angela, to also its philosophical base, its spiritual
Sure,
basis,
sure.
which
No, many people have asked, you know, how did you deal with, you know, the camps and all the death and all the extreme suffering? And I think definitely that the philosophy of this teaching, as well as at that time I was lucky enough to be with the founder of this particular, you know, group of centers, which was Swami Vishnu Devananda. And he had a mission that was very much about the world and about reaching people to really to work towards peace and you know, go out into the world. So there was that whole sense of backing somehow, that whole sense of inspiration in a way by this incredibly wonderful, gentle human being, you know, who really was bridging in a way this wonderful teaching with the actual world. And
that's
so
interesting. It's sort of like what you're kind of bringing up, Angela, is that when the Eastern, or in particular Indian, teachers come to the United States or to Europe, they start to become part of the world in a way they probably weren't in India. And so the teachings find an application, not to just one's own personal self, but then to the community.
Exactly, sure. And
Where they're actually most powerful.
And it's not easy to work with the world. I mean, the world is a bit of a crazy place, and this provides a tremendous strength to try and kind of move through the illusory, the parts that are not really helpful, which you can get distracted. So it's a tremendous strengthening, and then it's magnificent in terms of for your physical health, obviously. This is something you can do in a hotel room, you know, with the space of nothing, and it's something
3 by 2, right?
you can learn in 6 lessons in a weekend. So it's just this little thing. You don't need to go out jogging in some Muslim country, you know, or you have a way of actually, you know, working with your body and centering yourself and stretching and just keeping yourself, you know, kind of ready for the day and for the world.
That's right.
So it's just an immense gift. Immense gift.
God, and your children are also exposed to it, and how are they doing? What do they think of yoga? And
well, every morning when they've seen us, when my husband practices as well, and every morning they want to do it as well, so they kind of imitate.
I see, they follow along, right.
But this has been marvelous because it's the first time they actually had lessons, and it
here
was
at the
such a
ranch during this
like
week.
20 children, and they were, you know, just having a wonderful time. Just a wonderful time.
Well, that's fabulous. And the other, I think, very important piece of this is that you're having gone through the process that you've gone through, and your husband, your children are now learning something that is very deep and very rich and very ancient, and it's time-tested to have a real place in the world,
Sure.
the Vedanta philosophy.
No doubt, no doubt, and it's very, very healing all around. It's very important.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Really
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
it. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, you have now been introduced to the Shivananda Yoga Ashram here in Woodburn, New York. You've been given a taste of, maybe you could call it the good life. Life up here is really very peaceful, and it offers, as you now know yourselves, at least have been introduced to, a kind of life that is really very well balanced from the discipline of sitting, meditation, of singing, of practicing yogic asanas every day, to sitting about and talking, discussing important ethical and spiritual issues with each other. It offers a chance for people to rebalance their lives, especially those of us who spend so much time in the hectic urban centers of our modern lives. We are supping from the wonderful fount of ancient Indian wisdom come to us in the form of Vedanta philosophy. So now you now have a sense of that yourselves in a way before the show. I do pray, and I hope it's made some difference in your lives. Thanks so much for joining us. This is Mitchell J. Rabin for a Better World. Please send me some email, drop a line. Always appreciate hearing from you. Look forward to seeing you all next week.